Hi, everyone. My name is Terri Crosby in Care of Relationships. Thank you for joining me today for Friday Love. I've been thinking a lot about intimacy lately and wanted to share a few things about one morning when I was sitting on the porch having breakfast on Aunt Bertina's dishes. I was noticing the sidewalk, how the sidewalk is really representative of my life. It happened to be in early spring when I first arrived at this property, and I noticed that there were catkins all over the sidewalk. Those are those long, stringy pieces, tassels that fall from oak trees, and they float down when all the pollen is released, and they just float to the ground. And the sidewalk was covered with them. And I thought, sometimes my life is just like that, it's pretty messy. And sometimes the wind sweeps the sidewalk clean, and my life is like that too. There's not so much going on. It feels clean and open. Other times there's rain on the sidewalk, and how, sometimes in my life there are tears and emotion, and just like my sidewalk. So I was sitting there enjoying that and thinking about how intimate that is, that nature always shows us what's going on with us. And I was eating on these dishes. My Aunt Bertina lived into her late 90s. She was a very gentle woman. I don't remember a lot about her other than how gentle she was and how kind, and she just liked to feed us. We would go visit, and she would serve us on these dishes. And when she passed away, she gave them to my mother. And even though my mother hasn't passed away, she's still around, she gave me the dishes because she knew I loved Aunt Bertina and that I might actually use them, which I do. So I was sitting there having coffee in a teacup. That's a different thing. I'm used to a mug of coffee, and to have coffee in a teacup requires much more pouring. The coffee cools off faster. And it's quite an intimate thing. There's more of a relationship with the coffee because you keep pouring. The whole point of telling you this is that there are so many ways to experience intimacy in life other than with people. I was sitting there writing about how when I had gotten to the property, there were 4 geese there, not very many. And the night before, a flock of 20 or 30 had flown in as if they were just returning for the season. It was thrilling. It was such an intimate thing. You can, when geese fly overhead, if you've ever stood underneath that, you can feel them. You can feel their energy, the energy of their wings, their lungs, everything. And they were so noisy. They were like in celebration that they had returned. Maybe they were the same geese that had been there last year. Anyway, it felt like such an intimate thing to be included, if you will, in this homecoming that they were experiencing. Once they did land on the water, they were noisy until the evening. It was as if they were all catching up. Like, isn't it great to be back here? I'm totally making that up. But it was, they partied into the wee hours, shall we say. So I felt like that was such an intimate thing. And there I was with Aunt Bertina recalling her. And that was such an intimate thing. And I wrote about it. And then I walked into the house to get something, and when I came back out, the paper that I had been writing on was gone. I looked everywhere. I couldn't find it. And until 90 days later. So I wanted to show you. I found it tucked under the ferns. And so here's what it looks like. There's a leaf stuck to the paper, and there are all these nibbles by someone. And I was just thinking what an intimate thing that is, that someone someone crawling and nibbling, anyway, visited my paper. So they are now part of my, they're now part of my story. There's such an interweaving that goes on in life. And I think there's never a reason to be lonely with that kind of intimacy available. You know, the kind of thing that we experience in nature can take care of us and hold us. And that's the way I felt about the sidewalk and the geese and Aunt Bertina. And there were no people around. It was just me at the house. And I felt hugged. I felt hugged. So I'm encouraging us to remember how much intimacy is around even when people aren't. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for sharing this with anyone that you think might find it useful or enjoyable. I'm Terri Crosby in Care of Relationships. I hope you have a wonderful Friday. I hope you have a super weekend, intimate weekend, and take very good care of yourself. I'll see you next Friday.